everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Craft Cut Magic. And today what we're going to be doing is something that actually a couple of you have been asking about. We're going to be making a project using heat transfer vinyl, or HTV for short. So this is kind of an overview of all of the materials that you're going to need, but the project itself that we're going to be making is we're going to make a cute personalized kind of decorative edge for a basket. Now this can be for like an Easter basket for your kids to go outside so they know what basket they're going to use. You could do it for an Easter basket itself. You could also use it for, say, like a gardening basket that holds your tools and stuff like that. So this is just kind of going to give you an idea of what you can do with heat transfer vinyl. So for this project, let's get into the materials that you're going to need. And not everything is actually pictured here, but we're going to go through everything. So you're going to probably want some fabrics. However, if you're not going to want to use fabric, you can also go ahead and use felt with your iron-on as well. I have a weeder tool here, some scissors that are kind of hiding out right here. You're also going to want your basket that you're going to use, and you're going to want kind of I believe they call this a sewing measuring tape because it's a lot more flimsy. And this will just help you to measure the edge of your basket. You're going to want heat transfer vinyl, obviously. I have a couple different brands here, both Cricut and kind of more off-brand. You can see I got it on sale. So you can see how you can intermix some vinyls as well. I have a scraper tool, my roller tool, as I like to call it. I know that's not what it's called, but I can't remember the name of it right now. We also have a hot glue gun. This is for the fabric if you don't want to sew it to make a nice clean edge, or it can be for your felt, to glue your felt rim together. Now let's talk about the materials that are not shown here that you're probably going to want. Obviously, you're going to want an iron, Cricut brand or regular for this, just something that you know the heat of. And obviously, since you're going to be using an iron for the heat transfer vinyl, you're also going to want an ironing board or a heat mat, something that will just protect your surface or the ground or however you're going to be working with your project. You're going to want that. You're also going to want, and I'm sure it kind of surprised you that you don't see it, you're going to want that standard grip Cricut mat that is green, and I'll show that to you when we get to the point where we are cutting out our heat transfer vinyl. However, if you kind of want to see what that looks like, go ahead and check out one of my other videos, because for most of the videos that I do, we use that standard grip green Cricut mat. You're also going to want to make sure that inside of your Cricut machine, I have, of course, the Cricut Maker 4. You're going to want to make sure that your fine point blade is the one that is inside of your housing for your jig. So just make sure that that's in there. You're also going to want, as I said, with the fabric, if you're going to be using fabric and you want to sew it, you might want a sewing machine, which actually that's my sewing machine undercover right there. Or that's why I also say you could glue the edges to make it better. Or you could go ahead, and I've seen people use fabric glue to help make that edge nice and pretty. So you don't necessarily need a giant, huge sewing machine. If you're not going to use the fabric, like I said, you can also use felt. I do have felt that I'm going to be using. I'm going to be showing you 3 different ways that you can do this. One way with the sewing machine, one way with felt, and one way if you just wanted to glue the edge. So you can see all 3 of those versions. And I think that's about it for our materials that we're going to need. The one other thing that I did not mention for materials, you're going to want, of course, your device that has Cricut Design Space installed and that has the ability to use Bluetooth. That's very important for using your Cricut. And so as long as you have all of those materials, and don't worry about remembering all of those, I'll put the whole list in the description down below so you can go ahead and check out and kind of use it as a checklist for the materials that you might need. As long as you have everything kind of set up and ready to go, or at least kind of in the general vicinity of your workspace, we are ready to go ahead and jump into our project. So let's switch over to Design Space.
All right. So welcome to the homepage of Design Space. And if you've been following along for a while, you definitely know all about this and how it looks and everything. So you can see that there are some changes that have been made recently. And honestly, it starts right here with all of these different little pieces, which that's not the correct way to word it. It's more like all of the different ways that you can design on Design Space. And so if you click on blank canvas, you can see it actually opens up a blank canvas for you. And so that's a quick shortcut. If you are on the homepage and you don't just want to hit new project and go through all of these right here, you can now just do it right here on the homepage of Design Space. So now moving back over to the canvas, we can take our blank workspace and we can start to build our project. So let's get into that. So as you know, for this project, we're making basically Easter basket wraparounds that can have names or fun designs on it. And we're going to be doing this in a couple different ways just to give you some different ideas of how you can go about this. So the first way, of course, that I kind of showed you as I was going over all of our supplies and stuff is we can just do a nice, clean fabric wraparound. Now what this means is that a lot of the base work that we're going to be doing for this project isn't going to get cut at the end. You could if you'd like, but because we're using fabric for this and we're going to be doing just a little bit of sewing for that one, you're not going to need that base at the end of it. However, to give you a sense of how it's going to be, you're still going to want to give yourself that base just so you have an idea of how everything's going to look. So I'm just going to come over to Shapes, and I'm just going to click on a normal rectangle. And from here, we are going to go ahead and just extend it out. And honestly, it doesn't necessarily matter too much the length, per se, unless you want to be completely accurate of how much space you have to go off of and really know what you have to work with. So for example, if I measure around the basket rim and I find that it's going to be random measurement of 24 inches, let's say, you could go ahead and you could make this 12 inches wide. And now you just know that any design that you make on this rectangle, you would do times 2. That's just one way that you can think about it, or you could extend this rectangle out to be the full 24-inch imaginary measurement that we're using, and you could do the full thing so you don't have to worry about duplicating your project when we get to that point. Now though, I would also like to show you how you can set up for the base of your felt cutout as well. So you have that in case instead of using fabric, sewing it, doing that whole 9 yards. If you don't want to deal with that stress, I'll show you how to do the felt one as well, just so you have a little bit of versatility with your projects. Now, in order to create that border for your felt project, you can see that technically there are included designs that you could use from Cricut Access subscription. However, I'm not seeing anything that would look like a banner that we would want to use for this project. So I'm actually going to come over to images and I am just going to search for a banner of some kind, and hopefully it will kind of know what I'm looking for. Be sure to spell it correctly, and if a banner doesn't give you what you're looking for, we might want to actually try using the keyword border instead, and that actually might give us some better results than a banner in this case. So let's try that border keyword. All right, we're getting closer, and you can see this is more kind of what I'm looking for, is something like this. We could extend it. Something kind of like this. Now, there is a little bit of tweaking that I have to do with this. However, as you can also see, it is a Cricut Access subscription border. So let me try to find something that's not part of Cricut Access, just so you have that flexibility. If we just filter it by free, you can see now we have some different borders to work with. And oh, this one is rather large, but it is that rounded little edge that I like. So if I just bring this down, we'll just say 12 inches. That's looking rather nice. And honestly, I'm just going to turn this 180 degrees, because that's a little more like how it's going to look for us. And specifically, if you are doing the felt, it will get a little bit trickier just because of everything with felt, especially if you're using the standard size piece of felt, which I believe is like a letter size piece of paper, which is that 8.5 by 11 inches. So this wouldn't be able to cut the full 12 inches, obviously, and it might be a little more difficult for your basket gluing, so you just have to figure out how you want that to look. And if that doesn't make any sense right now, that's all right. I will definitely be able to show you what I mean when we're working on our project itself. So for now, you can find a border that you would like for that felt project as well if you're doing the felt. If you just kind of want to do the fabric as well, we're going to continue with that. But the main thing is, now you have the base work for either one of these projects with what you would like to be using. And from this base, now we can actually start on the main project itself. So I went ahead and I changed the color of our two bases just to make it a little bit easier to see all the work that we're going to be doing. It doesn't really matter what colors you choose. I just chose a blue one and a lighter orange. Now, something that I think is good for you to know are a couple things in case you haven't kind of gotten the hang of Design Space yet. You have this edit tool over here, which is where a lot of those potential little things inside of Design Space are located. So positioning for X and Y, your rotation, and the effects such as the offset, the sticker, and the warp are all underneath this edit tool right here. The other thing is where your layers panel is. So if you've been following along, you know that there's always usually a layers tab over here on the other side. Now it seems like it's collapsible, and so to access that, all you have to do is click on this kind of, I feel like the best way I can describe the symbol is a sandwich almost, and that's your layers panel. And if you remember it kind of as the sandwich symbol, that's fine. If you just want to remember it as the layer symbol, that works too. But the point of it is that when you click on that little symbol right there, it does open up what layers you have, and you can see everything that you normally would in Design Space on that sidebar. It's not gone, it just is collapsible now, which is kind of nice. It helps you with your workspace. Now, of course, let's get into the actual decoration of our little banner layers. So for one of these, I am going to be doing just a regular name on heat transfer vinyl. So if you just want to put someone's name on the basket rim, whether it's your kids or just a name in general to personalize, maybe for a Easter party or even just a spring party, or maybe for a gardening basket, it's really quite a versatile project. It's just more spring themed, and I can see it being used for both just like spring purposes and Easter. So really simple to do with just putting a name on a basket. You just select text and you can type in any name that you can think of. So for me, I'm just going to put in a random name that I think of. So let's go with actually a longer name so you can see how it works and you have a little bit more to see in terms of heat transfer vinyl. So I'm going to go with the name Stephanie, and I might change this name if I can think of a different name, but for now we'll just say for one of these we're going to do Stephanie. And so you can kind of place it where you would like, and we can change the text and do the whole 9 yards for that. Alright, so I went ahead and I chose some fonts for our text, and I also created a blank one as well for just some random designs for the spring and Easter season. So one of these I'm just going to leave blank, just the way it is. And I think I might actually leave the Adriana as our just kind of blank template, so it's not going to have anything else except for the name on it, and we'll use one of the pattern fabrics that I showed you from our supplies, and we will put the name on that. It'll be really simplistic, but it will be beautiful at the end of it. Now for this one, it's already going to have a name on it, as you can see. And I don't know, we might be able to jazz it up a little bit with a couple of cute little Easter things. So we'll check into that. And then for this bottom blank one that I have, we're actually going to do some patterns on this one. And what that will do pretty much is it will just make it a whole lot easier for us, and you'll be able to see more of what you can do with some heat transfer vinyl by showing you just some of the different things that you can do with little designs with your HTV. So let's find some cute little designs to put on these two basket wraparound templates. Okay, so I went ahead and we found all the designs that I think will look pretty good on these projects, at least for how they're set up currently. Now, as you know, pretty much the base for both the top and our bottom template, those are going to go away. Just because we're not actually going to need that, I'll be hiding these so that we'll have them for the future in case we come back to these projects and we want to use them again. However, we don't want them to be cut out when we're working with our project. And so found some really cute spring Easter-ish kinds of designs. And one thing that I do want to change is this basket right here. Pretty sure they're overlapped now. However, I want to contour. And for one of these, I'm going to hide the basket so that only the eggs are left. And we're going to change the egg color to, let's say, a purple. And now I can see if I actually succeeded or not in my attempt to overlap, and that was a no. But it was close enough. And then I'm just going to select this other basket, contour, and we're just going to remove those eggs. And now we could change the basket color to something a little more Easter basket-esque. A deep blue. Now, and you should also note that the colors that you use for your project, and I believe I've said this in past projects as well, the colors that you use don't have to honestly reflect the colors that you're going to use. Sometimes I find it helpful to see the project as it potentially will be. It can kind of help you decide what looks correct and what maybe doesn't look correct. So keep that in mind as well. So for example, I might not have this dark green in heat transfer vinyl, but I might have a green closer to what I just did the basket for. And you can change things and play around with colors and the text and patterns and everything that you see here. You can always change any project that we create together to fit what you think would be better for your project. So always keep that in mind as well. So for this, I'm just going to group them together for a minute. And you can always change the color of the text as well, by the way. You don't have to keep it black. See, I'm already regretting the choice to group those things together. Okay, perfect. So I'm really liking how each of our templates are looking for our heat transfer vinyl. And so since I'm happy with how everything is looking, we're almost ready to save. However, I do want to take those two squares, and I'm just going to hide those because when we go to finally create these projects, we don't want that cutting out, as I've said. So now that those are taken care of, now I'm ready to officially save this project. So you can always hit save. You're going to title your project, and I'm going to title it Wonderful. And now that we have our project all saved, now we can go ahead and we can start to make our project. And now, as you should know, making your project super simple. All you're going to do is you're going to come over and hit the green make button. Now, at this point of the project, definitely make sure that you're near your Cricut machine, that you go ahead and you turn it on, and that the Bluetooth is turned on the device you are using so that the Cricut and the device that you're using will recognize each other so that you can cut out your project. And once you have that completed, we can go ahead and we can continue with making this project.
Alright, so in my excitement to continue with this project, I almost forgot that we actually do kind of need to, know the sizing of our basket rim, and we have to do just a little bit of prep work before we start on the cutting of the iron-on. Now, again, if you're using felt, you're gonna mainly skip this part, except for measuring the rim. However, it is completely up to you. How you decide to do this. But for me, since I'm showing you with felt fabric and fabric, I definitely need to measure this, and I have to do a little bit of prep work for the fabric ones. So I measured half of the rim, as you kind of saw. So it's about the middle of this to the middle over here. And what I got from that is 18 inches on my ruler. So that means that in reality, it's 18 times 2, which I want to say is 36 off the top of my head. But we can do the math to make sure I'm correct on that. I don't want to just say that off the top of my head and then give wrong measurements, but definitely be sure to measure along here and go as far on the outside as you can. So let me just 18. Yeah, I'm right, 36. So I have a 36-inch rim, and I'm sorry you can't really see my math as I'm doing it. I just have a little post-it note right here. And the most that we can get from a fabric, from the felt, is 11 inches, because most things are 11.5, which is the standard long edge for a piece of letter size paper, and felt seems to pretty much follow that. So we have about 11 inches. Times that by 3, we're at 33, so we're going to need 4 by 11, and of course that's going to give us more than we need, but it will be better to have extra than it will be to have less. So we're going to do 4 11-inch pieces of felt, but for our fabric, we're just going to need the 36 inches. So as I was telling you, of course, the one is going to be felt, blue felt, and the others are just going to be kind of regular, normal ones. So I was thinking for the one with the cute flowers and the bunnies, I might just do this blue fabric so you can really see the design. For the personalization with just the name itself, I'm either probably going to go with the strawberries or the butterflies. I'm not quite sure, and I want you to see that these are fat quarters. But for now, I'm just going to take this off. And you can usually find pre-cut fat quarters at your local craft store. Mine just happens to be a Hobby Lobby, so that's where these came from. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of fold this out, and we're going to see how much I actually have to work with. And just so you know, you can always go ahead and you can iron this out, so you have that as an option. Looks like for the blue itself, we have about 21 inches that way. And it's going to be shorter this way, actually, which is fun. It's been a minute since I've used a fat quarter, but it's 18, almost exactly this way. We have actually a little bit of a lip, and sorry you couldn't see that. I can show you that again. So you can see over here about 18, just a little bit extra. Now I have to figure out how I want this to be on my basket. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of a time lapse for you guys while I figure that out. I think this might have been the one that I was going to just show you with glue, but honestly, I think I'm going to sew it anyway. So we can do a time lapse over that. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to repeat the same thing for our strawberry. However, this time I probably will make it, instead of just 4 inches, I will probably make it 4 1/4, just to give myself that space. And I guess I should explain a little bit better what was happening inside of that time lapse for you. Pretty much just what happened was I went ahead and I decided how wide I was going to make it. Now, obviously, if you remember from when we were working on design space, obviously I was going off of a 2-inch thickness. So I knew I was going to be folding it over, and that's why I actually did it the way that I did. Which reminds me of a very important thing. I don't have to do that for this one, since this is going to be the one that we glue with. So the thickness was going to be 2 inches. And this is my handy little pen that I use for sewing. When I do sewing things, I usually will use a friction pen. It is called a friction pen. I don't think it's focusing, but pretty much what it is it's an erasable pen. And the reason why I use these is because with heat, those little markers go away. And that's really helpful in the long run. So since it's going to be 2 inches, but I'm going to want to fold it, I'm actually going to go ahead and make it 2 1/2. And as you can see, I'm just going ahead and I am marking every so often 2 1/2, so that when I cut with just my normal scissors, I do not have fabric scissors really with me, I can use this as a guide. And so we're just going to do this twice. And this will be for our gluing example. Now, here's something that would have been a lot smarter of me to do. And so this is good for you to know. You might want to take a ruler of some kind and line it up against your marks. I'm going to kind of make sure that I'm close on both accounts. You might just want to make yourself a little line so you can cut a tad bit straighter than you might be able to with just little marks. That would have been a lot smarter of me to do. So as I was saying, you just cut And again, don't worry about those marks being on your final cut, because when we use heat, we'll go ahead and take this off. Okay. And now I will probably go ahead and iron these out as well, so they are a little less crazy. But now we have both of the examples. Of course, I need to go ahead and sew them, and I need to do that part as well. Alright, so here is the felt that we're going to use. It's a little bit floppy, and as you can see when we grab our basket, it covers about one edge. So we can actually do this a couple different ways. I'm probably going to make it so I have one that will cover right here on the edges. So two longer and two shorter cuts is probably what I will be doing. So one will go on the long side, short side of the basket, longer side again, shorter side. It will just give it some cleaner corners. And we're going to do that all with this felt right here. And you might recognize this felt. This is the same kind of felt color that we used for our cute little winter snowman wreath from the last project. And so now what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and we're going to move these off onto the side for now, all of it, except for the felt, because we're going to need that. And now we're going to go ahead and we're actually going to cut out everything that we need on our Cricut, all of the vinyl and stuff like that, and then we can continue with prepping each of the little sides. So go ahead and make sure that everything is ready with your Cricut machine. Make sure it's turned on, and make sure that you grab that device now, because we're going to be doing this for real this time. We're gonna cut out our HTV.
Now, for each project that we create, I always like to say that we are doing this on mat. However, I believe with any kind of Cricut materials that you have, it is possible that you might have HTV that is a smart material from Cricut. I'm not quite sure if Cricut does create something like that, but I don't have it. That's why I say it's a possibility. My HTV vinyl has come from Cricut from a while ago, and it's also come from 143 Vinyl, which is a website that sells really good materials for a very affordable cost. And so my materials are not smart materials, and it's definitely not going to be for a card. I always hit on mat, because if you've been following along for a while, you know it's been a long time since I've used smart material. I used it, I think, maybe once for you guys, and that was with the unboxing video of the Cricut, just cutting out a simple little project. Now, one thing I do want you to see with our on mat materials, because everything that I use is always going to be pretty much on mat, except for that rare occasion, it's only giving me the option of a 12 by 24 mat. The reason behind this, the blue for the one wraparound is longer than 12 inches, so I'm actually going to cancel this. I'm just going to take this one, and we are going to make it a little bit smaller. If that doesn't do it, I will be very sad. Resaving the project, and we'll go back into it. And sometimes you'll find that you have to adjust. That's why I say that for your materials, you might need something a little bit different. But now, with your on mat, you can do a 12 by 12 inch mat. So if you don't have like a 12 by 24 inch mat, and you just have the 12 by 12s, Now your project will fit. Go ahead and hit confirm. And now everything is sorted by color. Now here's where things are going to get a little bit interesting. And the reason that I say it's going to get a little bit interesting is because we are going to have to mirror all of our projects. And if you see this little symbol right here, you should turn on mirror for iron-on projects and materials that are placed face down like leather. So, whenever you are using HTV, this is probably the most crucial, most important step that you are going to have to make with your projects. Every single one of these pieces that are for HTV, you must make sure that you have your mirror turned on. Now, if you didn't see what just happened when I clicked on the mirror tool, it just turned the bunny to be facing the opposite direction. And for some of these, it's probably not going to matter as much as you think, except for the orange with the carrot. Same thing for this yellow. Nothing's going to matter very much except for the little chickadee. For the basket, honestly, it might not be that much of a difference, but it's good to mirror it anyway, because you need to be in the habit of mirroring all of this for your HTV. So go ahead, mirror your projects, mirror all of it, even the bunnies, mirror it, mirror it, mirror it. I cannot stress this to you enough. Now, the only one that you will not need to mirror, if you're doing a felt wraparound instead of the fabric, you do not need to mirror the base of your project. You can, just to make sure that everything is the way that it needs to be. However, this is the only thing that's going to be on this page, and you're going to be cutting it out of felt, not heat transfer vinyl. So you do not need to mirror this one. If you want to, just to have that extra security, that's fine, because I don't think this image is going to really matter whether it's mirrored or not. You probably wouldn't see a difference. However, just know that you don't have to mirror that one, but the rest of it, mirror it. Definitely the ones with text. Text is probably one of the things that is the most crucial for HTV. Anything that has text at all. If you don't mirror this, it's gonna look really scary. Take it as someone who's accidentally done that before, where they cut out the heat transfer vinyl, weeded it all out, and turned it and went, oh shoot, I forgot to mirror my project. Yeah, I've had it happen before. So always make sure that you are mirroring your image. And if you want now, you could go through each layer and you could double check, make sure that the mirror is on. And once all of this is figured out and you've double checked, maybe even triple checked to make sure that all of the correct layers are mirrored for your heat transfer vinyl cuts, now we can go ahead and we can click on the green continue button.
Okay, so I just kind of realized that I did a time warp on that last set. So let me kind of explain what just pretty much happened. So we went ahead and we put down our material and everything, and I will be showing you this again, but pretty much what we just did is we just cut out the bunny on our heat transfer material. And I want you to notice that I had the shiny side, and this is really important, and I'll tell you this again. The shiny side is the side that you're going to always put facing down for your iron-on, because the matted side is the side that you can actually cut with. So I went ahead and I cut out one of our first little pieces, and it's the pink bunny for that third type of wraparound. And I'm actually just going to go ahead and you can see, well, maybe you can't. I can see the lines pretty well. of the bunny here. Let me see if I can. All right, so you can really kind of, forgive the close-up, close-up, but you can really kind of see the lines of the bunny, whereas you couldn't from so far away. So this is our cutout of our bunny on our material. So now what we can do is we can cut off our excess, obviously, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to as I readjust. Just going to look for that line, and I know you can't necessarily see it very well anymore. I'm just going to look at that line. I'm going to give myself a little bit of leeway there. Technically, I could cut some of this at the bottom off as well. Perhaps some small little details can be done on this other piece. We can always save that for future projects. Now, I could go ahead and I could leave this out now. I'm not going to. Reason being is because the other side of this is sticky, and that's to help you with placing all of these heat transfers onto the material that you're going to be using, so you can stick it down, keep it in place while you grab the iron to iron it down. So we're not going to weave like we normally would for each piece as we get them. We're going to keep it like this, and then when we're done cutting out all of the pieces and we're ready to go, then we're going to come back and we're going to weed out all of the little pieces. So from here, what you're going to do is you're just going to keep following the process. So for each color, for each different kind of heat transfer vinyl that you encounter, you're going to change the setting if you need to. So I have glitter heat transfer vinyl that is Cricut branded. And I also have heat transfer vinyl that is glitter that is non-Cricut branded. So I'm gonna get to kind of play around a little bit on how to actually cut some of these. It just says medium pressure, 35 PSI. It says standard blade cut mirror. So I'm gonna get to figure out how this one works. And that's going to be the same for all of these, because the others are, this one's a puff vinyl, and this one's a flocked iron-on. Different kinds of iron-on that I have here for our project, but we're going to go ahead and we're just going to start pretty much cutting out all of the different kinds that we have. And when we're done with that, we can go ahead and we continue to prep the base of our fun little baskets. But I'm going to continue with cutting out the heat transfer vinyl for the time being. So let's keep going. Now, as I said before, I was going to show you, because for some reason I accidentally put the video on time warp for that first piece. I wanted to go through with you once again how you can really do this project well. So right now I have to cut out my orange, and honestly what I have right here, it's going to work, it will work, but I wanted something kind of a little nicer for you guys to see, but that's okay. We'll just do it the way that it is. The thing about Cricut heat transfer vinyl, and this, take this with a grain of salt, this is an older heat transfer vinyl, but it's very, as you can see, it likes to roll rather easily. So this is where that brayer, that's the name of that rolly tool, that is going to be something that we're going to need for this one, just to make sure that it stays down. So I'm going to grab Matt, our rolly tool, and now this is what I was trying to tell you in the last little clip with the heat transfer. So here we go again, and you can see this rather well for Cricut heat transfer vinyl, especially the glitter. So there's a white side, and there's the orange, sparkly, shimmery, shiny side. You're going to want to put it so that shimmery, shiny side is face down. I'm going to put to kind of rotate this so I can get this on here properly. Because the other part of these projects is you always, always, always want it to be as straight as possible. So again, as straight as you can get it. And then for this glitter iron-on in particular, since it's going to be so rolly with me, just had to roll that down. And then load it like you normally would. Make sure that there's room for the mat to measure out. And also make sure that you select the correct material, which for us is glitter iron-on for me. So it's glitter iron-on, Cricut branded. Now it's going to go ahead and measure that mat. Oh, calm down. So now we're going to go ahead and cut. All right, that was a lot of fun. So here we go again. Unload. I'm gonna double check and make sure that everything looks okay because that cut out super fast. This is actually my first time cutting out iron-on with the Cricut Maker 4. And then we're just gonna go ahead and going to roll our material off of our mat in our standard fashion of rolling the mat. And trying not to really roll the fabric material, even though it does happen. Now we're going to cut around our material that we are using. And remember I said that we were probably going to have to do multiple of this. We probably will have to come back and cut more of these to make it go all the way around. However, for the time being, I'm just going to keep going with what I originally had. But here we are. Just went ahead and cut that out, and it's kind of difficult to see, but you can kind of see it against the backlighting for this one, which is really great. That all of it, including our little carrot over here at the side, cut all the way out. And so this is why it's really, really important that you mirror your projects and make sure that you place your iron-on with the shiny side always facing down, or whichever side it says needs to be down. So let's see here. We're just going to continue to repeat this process now until we have all of our iron-on cut out. Okay, so I zoomed in really close, as you can obviously tell, because I wanted to point something out to you. And it's kind of hard to see, but can you tell how I went over the line right here on our Cricut mat with the material that I was using? See how it's a little crumpled along this edge now? That is why I always say get it as close as you can to being in alignment, because if you're not careful, stuff like this happens with your materials and your project. So you can kind of see a different angle. You can see exactly where that line was. Because of this wheel right here, it just kind of destroyed that little bit of the material, which in this case isn't too bad. However, in other scenarios, it could be. So just kind of keep that in mind. So I did get all of our heat transfer vinyl cut out, all the different kinds. And pro tip for you guys, if you ever use the glitter or that flocked heat transfer vinyl from, I got mine at Hobby Lobby, but if you use it, it's the brand 405 Basics. If you use that, actually for all of them, I did the same thing. For all of those, I used the glitter iron-on cut setting on the Cricut, and they all cut out spectacularly. So keep that in mind. Now the only thing that we have left to actually cut with this is the felt for that one felt project. So I'm actually going to get out a different mat for that one, and I'm going to go ahead and we're going to cut out those pieces on one of the mats that I already have kind of mangled with all my different kinds of felt. As you can obviously see from the many projects that we've done together, this is the result. So I'm going to put this down, and we actually get pretty close to 12 inches, which is nice to know. Actually, that's very good to know. That means that we could probably get away with 11.5 inches for our stuff. But I was going to do 4 pieces that are 11 inches anyway. Or was I going to do it? Hang on. Oh yes, I was going to do 2 and 2 actually. I might need a little bit extra, but I think I'm going to measure sides and then we'll cut this out. So let me bring my basket up. And this is why it's always a good idea to keep your materials close at hand. Now, let me see if I can't get you guys a little bit better angle of this as we go. Okay, here we go. So here's our basket. Let's see here. So the long side is 12 inches. How am I going to get this to cut? I think we might have to actually go with my original idea of the 4 and 4 because it would cut right at the very edges, and Cricut doesn't cut to the very edge of the fabric. So I'm going to go back to my original idea of just doing the 4 pieces at 11 inches, and we'll just have to figure out the creases. So I'm going to go into my Cricut pattern for this. And we're just going to change the size of that. .4 inches. That's pretty decent actually. I'm going to take it to 11. And sorry everyone, I'm doing this off screen. Save it again. And I'm gonna go ahead and make, and remember with felt, you don't need to actually mirror your project. On that. And now all the rest of the colors I don't care about. Just double check and make sure you're actually going to be using the correct thing. Now I'm gonna bring back our mat that has our felt on it. I'm going to try to really get this stuck down as much as this thing will allow. And now, since I am using felt, you guys know me, I'm going to bring out my handy dandy fabric rotary blade housing and tool. And you know, depending on the kind of felt that you use, you may need this, you might not. If you're interested in working with felt and you haven't been following along with the channel and all of the videos that I've done in regards to that, you should go and check out specifically my last project I did a lot of felt with. It was a snowman wreath. I've also made some felt banners as well, and all of them were done using felt, and I believe for some of them I have used a fine point blade, but most of the time I have been using this rotary blade. So just kind of keep that in mind for this as well. And I forgot to put multiple projects on this. So let me just apply. I can get down to about 8 inches on this. I'm going to be able to, I'm going to be able to fit all 4 onto a singular sheet, which is very nice for us. And I'm going to double check that actually one more time. Yeah. Oh, it's going to be perfect. All right, so as long as you have all that taken care of, you can go ahead and press go, and it's going to start cutting out our felt, which is the last thing we need the Cricut for. All right, and so now we have all 4 of our pieces cut out for this as well. Hopefully what I'll be able to do is just kind of sandwich these together and make it so you're not going to be able to see that line at all. At least that's the goal. More than likely it's not going to work, but that's going to be the goal. So I also wanted to just kind of show you, because a lot of what I've done with felt in the past has been very fine kinds of things, very detailed little things. So I want you to see with the rotary blade how well this turned out for your felt projects. Absolutely spectacular. Not a flaw at all. It really is probably one of the greatest cuts I've ever had for felt, because everything I like is so intricate. So keep that in mind as well for both this project and future projects. If you use felt and you want to use the rotary blade, it's definitely going to work for those really, I can't say simplistic, because this does have the little kind of ruffled fringe at the edge, but not quite as complex as, say, text or lots of curvy designs. Something a little more simplistic will really cut well with that rotary blade. And so with all of that, all of our materials are cut from the Cricut. We have all of our different kinds of HTV that we can use, and all of these have our designs. We're going to actually see how well some of this is going to weed out here. So, I mean, take what I said a little bit with a grain of salt, because I haven't actually weeded this out yet. I don't actually know how well it cut. It seems like it cut rather nicely, but we'll still see about that. So now that we have all of these cut out, technically what we could do is we could set up one of these and we could put our HTV on this. Now, however, I do want to set up the other 2 versions of this first, so we can just go ahead and take care of all of our heat transfer all at the same time. Now, if you do use a different brand for your HTV other than, say, Cricut branded vinyl, just keep those instructions wherever they may be, whether it's the box or perhaps it's like it was for this one, where it's a sheet of paper that wrapped around. There are instructions here, because you're going to want specifically the temperature and pressure settings, how hard you're going to have to try to press on this, because I don't have a heat press like it says in this. So we're going to see how well that actually works for this. This was the light purple puff vinyl for one of our bunnies, but you can see this one was for the glitter vinyl. You can see here it has temperature 320 degrees, the time that you need to have it sitting with the heat, how much pressure you're going to have to try to apply, and then it actually also gives you that you need to peel off the liner when it is still warm. I don't know if the instructions on this one were that specific, but we're going to find out here for a second. Let's see. Remove clear liner immediately. See, this is why it's good to have those instructions. Also for care, if you wanted to wash anything that uses HTV. I know a lot of people use HTV for like shirts and bags and stuff like that, so it's also good to know how it washes as well. But we are using it for this project in particular, which is definitely not a bag. It's a bag liner in a way. So now we're going to pull back over our other materials. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to start getting our blue one ready for sewing. And again, I'm not a sewing expert. I'm sure there are better ways to do this, but this is just how I'm going to do this. I'm actually going to iron this, I think, at some point before I actually use the iron on. But what I'm going to do for this blue one that I'm going to sew together, I'm actually going to have the right sides facing together. I'm going to try to line these up as best as possible, and then if you have pins, now would be the time to use them so your fabric doesn't move at all. I'm going to do this to both, and then we'll turn it right side out after we've just sewn down the line. And after that, we're going to make it so I'm gonna sew these lines together. And pretty much how it will be is, if I can, and you'll see this more as we go along, but if I were to kind of put this together in a show of how it's going to be, I'm going to take both these edges, and if I can get them to be lined up, what I'll do is I'll just do a thin little line straight down right here, across, and that will make it so we have those clean edges. And if that doesn't make sense, not a problem. I will still be showing you exactly how that all works. So we're going to start to get into that next. Alright, so as you just kind of saw in that time lapse, I went ahead and we made our one version for our little basket wraparounds. So what I really need to do with these now is I need to press them. But I hope you kind of saw I sewed them where they were inside out, with the right sides facing each other, just sewed a line straight down, and then I turned them right side out. And I did that for both of these. Of course, we're going to sew these edges as well a little bit later, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to, number one, I'm going to press these so they aren't as crinkled and so that the bottom seam is flat. However, I'm probably also going to put the heat transfer vinyl onto this before we finalize the edges for that one. So now what we are doing is I have my hot glue gun warming up right here. Kind of see it. And now we're going to do the other. So remember, we have 3 that we are making, 3 different kinds, because I want to be able to show you versatility for this and the different ways. So if you don't have one thing, you can probably do another. So now what I'm going to do for this one, if you remember, we made these, I believe, 2.5 inches. I'm going to remeasure here. Yep, 2.5. So I have a 1/4 inch on both sides to kind of fold this in. I'm just going to go ahead and start marking because we only need it to be 2 inches in width. That's how we kind of made our design. So I'm just going to mark off a 1/4 inch. And then pretty much what we're going to do, and technically I can do this 2 ways. And I probably will do this 2 ways for the markings. Pretty much I'm going to mark it on the inside so we can fold to meet that little marker right there. And I know that doesn't seem like a whole lot, and really it's not. I'm going to flip this over, not fold it. And I'm actually going to turn it as well, so we're marking the same side. And all I'm going to do now is to kind of go half, so as we fold along, I can double check myself and make sure that that is right on top. Now remember, my pen is these marks are going to go away with heat. So if you're using a pencil or some other kind of marker that is not going to come off with heat, then maybe just do the marks on the inside. But if you have the pen like I do, that is going to help you out quite a bit for this project if you decide to do it this way. Okay. And now I'm just going to repeat this on the other side and for the other one as well. Now, as I'm going along, I'm sure some of you might be questioning my sanity. I'm sure saying, why are you using hot glue when we're going to have to heat it back up with an iron? And that's a very good point. However, we are going to go ahead and we are going to protect our workspace with parchment paper for when we do this one. So I promise that whether you use hot glue, a sewing thread, if you're just using felt, I promise that you can still use everything to the best of your ability. And that's how we're going to protect our surface. Because by using parchment paper, you're going to find that, yes, the glue will probably melt down again, which will be great because it will flatten it out even more once again than we have with our cute little protector right there. But it's also going to help out for when we take it off, it's not going to stick. like it would if you used, say, just like normal paper. Definitely don't want to do that, because then you're going to have two things completely stuck together. And we're just going to keep going. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to work on now that we kind of have our bases put together, now we're going to go ahead and we are going to weed our vinyl. And basically all weeding is a way for you to take out what you don't want for your pieces. So all you're going to do is you're going to get it ready. And if you want, at this point, you could have your images pulled up and all that. Just know that once you take these off, you are going to have a sticky back, and you're going to be weeding out what you don't want. So for example, this that I'm working on right here is the carrot. And you can see I'm trying to use a pen. It's not necessarily working. You can also use your fingers as well. We're just going to peel back. I'm going to gently try not to take your image off with you. What you want to keep. I'm going to gently bring this together. And now we have our piece all ready to use. You can kind of see front side. This is how it's going to look. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and we're going to weed out all of these pieces. So as you can see, we're going along quite well with the weeding of our pieces. I wanted to show you though the difference between one of these more flat pieces and something that's not quite as flat. So obviously with this one you can really see the design, and it makes it a little bit easier to just take the corner up from the edge with just your fingernail and pull across. Now something to keep in mind when you're working with any kind of vinyl or HTV is just to use caution, and especially since we have some of these tiny bits, I'm going to go slower. And as you could see, part of it, or maybe you couldn't, but part of it kind of wanted to come with me. Obviously, I don't want it to come with me. So I'm using one of my weeder tools to just help that stick back down. And continue up and around. And I don't know if you could kind of tell in the time lapse that you saw, and I didn't do very much, I didn't want to bore you with the time lapse of me just taking this all apart. However, I hope you kind of saw that I was having a little bit of difficulty with it. And sometimes, you know, that is completely normal. Some things might not necessarily cut the way you were expecting, or cut all the way through. So particularly with that orange glitter piece, this one, it was being a bit of a pain. And it was ripping and tearing, and it's in pieces over here in my kind of scrap pile. And just be careful, because I was pulling up just the glitter part, I was pulling up the whole thing. Excuse me. I was also just kind of pulling up the back part that's supposed to adhere down. You can kind of see right here, that's that back part that would adhere down. So that's why I say use caution. Now this one is very sticky, so that's good. Now we have this piece. So unlike our light purple that was a little bit thicker, or even the green, or any of these, this is more like blue that I used for the name of Luke. A very thin very fine kind of heat transfer vinyl. And so I actually have a pin pen, I believe is what they're called. And this also is one of the supplies that I got off 143, but I'm sure you can find it on like Amazon or anywhere. But I'm just going to try to pull up this corner. And I have a couple of weeding tools. Obviously, as you've seen, I have my pin pen, which I actually like a lot for vinyls and stuff like that. And I have more of the Cricut brand kind that has the thick part to it right here, which helps me to keep some things stuck down. And both, I believe, are really helpful when working with projects like this. So you can see I'm just barely kind of pulling. And if your HTV kind of rips, you want to make sure that it's ripping in a way that's not going to affect your design. So what do I mean by that? Well, pretty much if it tears, and hopefully you can see this, you want it to tear kind of right where the cuts are, and it will be a tear because, well, you have to keep going without it. So I'm gonna go around this way, continue around, try not to pull too harsh. And sometimes you can do it yourself, if that kind of makes sense. You can force kind of the tear so you don't keep dragging things along, whether that means you use just scissors and you cut, or if you just take a thin piece and you just say, hey, you know what? Nope, I'm going to do this myself. A little bit later, I put these pieces right here. I just want to tear that. So now I can go through and I can weed these smaller pieces. Also a good use for some finer point stuff. And sometimes and this is applicable to both vinyl and HTV, sometimes you want to start at the top part of a small, fine design and kind of go backwards towards where it wants to be, just because then you don't accidentally drag some of the smaller bits, like these little pieces right there. And we're just going to kind of do the same at the top. So I'm going into each of the little parts, and if you see from this, you can kind of get a better idea of where I'm going. So I'm taking it by the tops of each of these curves and just kind of pulling it back towards the main branch in this case. And don't worry if you're really kind of messing up your sticky piece. I mean, as long as it's still at least slightly sticky, it will help you out, but it's more important to get a perfect design than it is to have a sticker. Okay, so now we have all of our pieces weeded out. So now we get to move over to our iron, and so we're going to set up some of our pieces, and we're also going to start to heat press these down. So let's move over to our iron. So as you can see, now our iron is green, all lit up in green, which means it's to temperature. Now remember, these things are going to be hot, so don't burn yourself. I'm just going to kind of press this a little bit, get out that wrinkle, and I'm also going to kind of take advantage of this and try to smooth out that glue underneath without having it completely seep through. So you can already see what's kind of happening. Is that our glue is heating up through the back and it's coming off, which is good for making it so we can do this properly. You can just pre-prep your surface. It might take a minute for this to all work out, and honestly, I might have needed to let it sit for a minute. This is our most important part right here, because this is where we are going to be putting the name. Now, since we did use hot glue as well, I want you to know that I worked very quickly with this, because unless you put something in between, you probably don't want the glue seeping through your fabric onto your iron. That would not be very good. So just keep all that precaution in mind. Now that it's a little bit cooler, I'm just going to lift it up. And I'm going to move this again. Sorry, everyone. Kind of moving you. It's a little hard to do this with a camera right there. Okay, perfect. Gonna let this cool for a second. Then we're gonna go ahead and we are going to switch courses, and we are going to put our name onto this. You really only need it on one, I think. Now, if for your kid or for your own project, you wanted to put it on both sides, that is completely your choice. I just decided to do it on one for this project. Okay, so now we know. Now, this is the nice part about the Easy Press Mini, is that I'm just going to have to go right in between, and you count 5. Okay, that's about good. Now I'm just going to place this about middle. Now that I have an idea of where that is, I'm going to place this down. And now we're going to start on this. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. Now, if you want, you can keep going, or what you can do is you can flip it around and try to do that other side. Since there is stuff on the other side, I think what I'm just going to do is I'm going to continue on this side for another 15 seconds. All right, so now this is where another part gets to be important. It says you slowly remove the liner when cool to touch. So if you were to try and touch this right now, obviously it's pretty warm. I don't recommend you touching it, you might burn yourself. However, my hands are fine enough that I can have an idea of what's happening. So while that's kind of cooling, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this other piece down on the bottom. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to try to smooth out these wrinkles, these creases, I guess I should say. They're not quite wrinkles. While that cools. And if you have any kind of questions at all, you can always feel free to ask me in the comments. I'm trying to stay on top of looking over everything that you guys have to say. I've really been enjoying your comments, especially on the last video. Some of them were really fun. So if you have any questions about heat transfer vinyl, of course, please let me know. Ask away, and I will try to help you out as best I can based off of my experience and give you some pointers, some tips and tricks if you would like. And if you don't want to leave a comment or ask me a question, or if you feel like you're doing good, if you do ever encounter a problem and you need answers as soon as possible, like within a really quick time frame, honestly, just try to use the heat guide to find what you were actually looking for, what you were searching for in terms of information, because it can be a huge help. I'm just going to keep going with pressing this now until these creases are kind of at least more under control. They might not be completely gone, but at least hopefully more under control than they are now. This is looking pretty good. And I want you to know that right now this is more warm to the touch instead of cool. It's said to remove when cool to the touch. So I still have a minute on that. And you know, if something needs a cooler setting, we might have to wait a minute when we continue to our other parts of this, just so that the iron can cool in between. But the nice thing is that hopefully you won't have to if you do this yourself. Okay, this is pretty well pressed. I mean, there's still a crease in the middle, but I feel like it will be all right, and it might come out once we completely finalize this. I'm going to brush all of that away. And now my hands are a little bit warmer, but I feel like we're at a point where not only can I pull this off, but now we might be able to peel this. Now, something that is very good to know is that when you start to peel your heat transfer vinyl, do so slowly from one corner. And as long as it's not pulling up, you can continue along. And you want to check each piece. So especially these little parts of each letter, you're going to want to make sure that that is down very well. And that's kind of good for you to know too, is that the glue kind of came in right here to the other side, and it just kind of stuck a little bit to the page itself. There you go. But it all pulled off quite nicely. Here's our piece of paper, or kind of our transfer sheet that can be discarded now, and now you have this stuck on, and it's very nice and set into our, well, set on top of your fabric. It doesn't go into it. If you want something to go into your fabric, that's when you would need more of your I'm searching for a specific word here. If you want something to go into your fabric, like seep into the fabric, you're going to be looking more for transfer, like heat transfer ink. That's how you make things a little more permanent and not necessarily just like on the surface. I know that most like shirts and stuff like that though do use iron on. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. Now I'm just going ahead and I'm pressing the next part of our project, which is of course our blue lines for the flowers and the bunnies to go on. And so just press it flat. Try not to get creases like I just did. Now we're going to be able to work with this as well. Now you technically don't need this anymore. Now we can move on to this. And so we have a couple of different things for this one. Ooh. Now this one obviously is going to be a little bit different because we have layers this time. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, the only thing that's different really are that these two are going to go over the top of each other. So you can see kind of, it's going to look like this. So in this scenario, we put down the one that we like first. It's this one, and I'm going to put it right in the middle. Our iron is already to heat. I'm just going to start pressing it down. Now again, you should probably preheat your material. I'm just going to go ahead and we're just going to do this. Stick it down nicely. Going to check it. There's some pieces that aren't really coming off quite yet smoothly. So we're just going to keep going. Back and forth, and this is why it's good to test. And this is also kind of another way you can do heat transfer vinyl. You don't necessarily have to follow it to the exact instructions of the heat guide. It's definitely preferable, but if you just are kind of like, well, I don't have the time for this, and you're coming down to the crunch, you can always just play it by ear and try yourself. See? So that was kind of coming up. You might have to wait for this and dry peel it. So I'm dry. Cool peel. I guess that's a better way of putting it. These are definitely not that way. While that is cooling off, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to stick down these others. One like that. You're going to want to wait for it to cool. Honestly, I just think you should probably try cool peeling all of them, because what's the worst that happens? You have to warm it back up, try again. That one kind of turned out cool. And now if your vinyl does this, you kind of see it curled up a little bit. There are two reasons why that could be. Number one, that could just be the way the vinyl is. Or you might have used too much heat. So that's a good thing for you to know as well, is that that is a possibility. Either way, the nice thing for me is that I like the way that it looks, actually. It kind of gives it a cool texture, so there's nothing wrong with it. Otherwise, I'd probably have to start again, go through the whole 9 yards. I'm just gonna cool peel this. There we go. It's probably gonna get down a little bit more. Now, if you remember, actually, for our template, the bunny was in between 2 sets of the flowers. I obviously did not separate them, which is okay. For this, I actually kind of like the way that it's looking. And again, this just kind of shows you how things can change throughout your designing as well. I'm just going to line these up as best I can. now we're gonna stick it down. It's gonna kind of create a cool look around. It's not appearing. And that could be because of, well, honestly, it's probably because it's glitter and a different kind of vinyl on top of glitter. I don't think it really likes that. And so, as you can see for our bunny over here, that one needed to be a warm press. A warm peel, I guess I should say. So we're just gonna apply some good pressure to this. This might be when it's a good time to bring out an ironing board if you need a firmer surface. I'm just gonna really press this down. Really try and adhere it together. It's not really moving anymore, which is a good thing. And it's going to create a nice kind of effect. And that's something you can also do with your vinyl. Just because it appears one way doesn't mean that you can't change it when you actually go and do it yourself. I'm gonna look. This might need to be a cool peel because it does not seem like it's happy with me with heat. So we're just gonna wait on this one. Now, in the meantime, we can work on our final piece, which is the really fun one with our felt that had a lot of different elements to it. So I'm just going to start placing certain things. And I'm going off script, obviously, because this is not what we originally had in terms of our placement. But honestly, even though I have my computer right here, I'm just kind of going off book, off the script. And that egg's not really gonna appear on there very well. So what I might do is I might put it on one of the others. And you might want to keep your scissors nearby, so when you encounter things like this, your two bunnies, you don't have to mess around with it like I'm kind of doing. I didn't bring over some scissors. Alright, scissors, and just gonna cut them apart. Now I have my two scissors. We're gonna do a bunny. And you know what? Maybe we're just gonna do the basket with the eggs. Then I'll put this other bunny and the egg on this one. I might do that. Ooh, and this page is a little bit stiff coming off now that it's been heat pressed, this other one. And honestly, for the most part, it actually adhered quite well after I just applied some force. So again, this is why it's important to make sure you look things over. I'm probably going to use the iron again on it, just to make sure that everything is truly sticking down. But the nice thing is, for this project in particular, it's probably not going to be going through the wash either. So I'm not too concerned about those loose edges. But if I was going to wash this, I'd be a little more concerned. I'm just gonna do a final run on this. Really try and press that down. Okay, now we can add those other small things. Have our egg over here, and the bunny. Where did the bunny go? Oh, it's in my lap. Maybe I'll change this. We'll put the basket. We'll do the carrot over here since it's already going to have two different things. So we'll do the basket with the eggs and the other bunny as well. Okay. I think I have a good idea of what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna press these down now. Perfect, and don't lose your pieces. I'm going to just double check my placement of all of this. Make sure that it's the way I like it. Yeah, bunny's kind of jumping a little bit better. Falling, like coming down from the jump. Yeah, I like. And I always recommend trying to at least keep a little bit of movement. Your pieces. And obviously, depending on the vinyl, depends on how hard you should press. All of that we've already explained. But with this chick, I'm really gonna kind of press it. Press it, press it, press it. Hope that I got that down for a second, and I'm going to just check on the rest of this over here. It did pretty well, actually. I'm gonna take one of these pieces and I'm just gonna get that down a little bit better because it's kind of sticking up over there. And our carrot came off quite nicely. That was good. And we can check our bunny. That one came off well. Second bunny, fantastic. A basket, yes. The name, ooh. Yes, 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 perfect. Takes over now. Ooh. Position them. Press that down. Shouldn't take too much, and let's check this chickie. And certainly a lot more difficult, and I'm concerned about the legs. Oh, it came off quite nicely. That worked out really well. And our eggs. It's giving me a little bit of grief. Oh, they're not. And this could be a thing too. It might be too small. I might need something a little bit of weight behind it. Flat. Oh, they're not even in the right place anymore. They really don't like me. Well, I'm gonna wait on that for a minute. So now that we have all of our pieces like this put together, the ones that we wanted to have our vinyl have the vinyl. Now we can go ahead and we can finish up our project, and we can make it so it wraps around. So pretty much all I'm going to do is I'm going to take these edges, I'm going to put two together, and we're going to sew it. So let me give you an idea of what I'm talking about with this other piece and the others as well. This is what I'm talking about, so you have an idea. So obviously, we will have our pieces. All I'm going to basically do is I'm going to put these two together. I'm going to sew a straight line, and then all I'm going to do is we're going to open it, and you're going to have a seam right there. And it would be the same on the other side as well. For this one, since we aren't using that kind of method, all we're going to do is we're going to take some hot glue And we are going to more or less do the same thing, but we're going to be very, very careful. We can just do a little line of glue right there. Just put the two pieces together. That's what we're going to do. And sorry, it seemed like I was a little bit blurry. So just a thin line of glue right there is what we're going to do. We're going to place them together. So once again, we create that seam. Well, we will create that seam for our basket. Now with this one, it's a little more tricky. And let's see if those eggs liked me. Oh, they finally liked me. Ta-da! So not quite what we had planned, but I think it actually turned out quite wonderfully. Now for this one, we're also going to use hot glue as well, but for this, we're going to take it from the back side. We're going to apply that hot glue right here. So hopefully these two are going to blend together almost seamlessly so that it will wrap around our project. And then we can show you the end results. Now I'm kind of waiting for my hot glue gun to warm up. I turned off my iron and it's cooling down right now. Plugged in my heat gun. I'm going to do this kind of right here for a couple, but I want to show you. I know that's rather close up, sorry about this, but this is about what it's going to look like on our basket. So you can already see it comes halfway and about halfway, which is great. So when we put the other one on, it's going to be nice and snug, or even sit around the edge of the basket below. And so it's going to fit nice and snug. It's going to be perfect. Alright, so obviously the sewing machine doesn't need any kind of explanation, but for this one, I kind of want to show you what I'm going to do. And honestly, I'm going to use this as kind of my in-between page so I don't get any hot glue. Or you could use that page that has the parchment paper on it too, since we already used that. But for now, I'm just going to take this like that. The other two, obviously you need to make sure that everything lines up correctly, so don't accidentally go like this, where your two decorative edges are on different sides. You don't want that, you want them lining up together. Perfect. It's already getting close, but see how you can barely see the seam right here. I mean, you can see the seam, obviously, but it's not as bad as it could be. And you don't have any icky, sticky glue peeking out. And thankfully, this one's going to be the back, so that's not going to be too much of a problem. So this is how you can glue it together, and what's nice is that it's flexible now. It's not coming apart. And it hasn't even completely cooled down yet, so that'll tell you something too. So that's how you'll do that one. And this one is, oh, nope. By the way, again, hot glue is hot, so don't burn yourself. But it was not hot enough to burn me. And I've said before that, you know, my hands are a little more heat tolerant than they were when I was growing up, so it's a lot easier for me now with this. And if any of you work in the kitchen, you know what I'm talking about. Our hands are heat resistant. Okay, then we have this one. This one's going to be a little bit different. So you can see I have one side facing up, and I'm going to have the other side not facing up, but hopefully the way that I want it. Go. Decided that for myself. And now we're just going to do that thin line of glue. Going to line them up as best as we can. Just gently press them together. If you need your little finger protectors too, that's completely fine. And then of course, as I said, the other one, I sewed together to get the seam. This one kind of cools down for a second. Bring this back. Now I want you to know that this is the one that has our text on it. You can already kind of see it shining through the back. I'm just going to take this now. Oh, I have a different way that I put this down. So again, double check, make sure everything's going to be the correct way. And for this one too, make sure that your side with the glue is also on the correct side. It should be. I don't think that would be necessarily something you could potentially mess up on at this point, but it's good to double check just in case because I panicked for 2 seconds. Okay, so that's going to dry as well. Now, this seems to be cool, so I want to show you that edge. Ta-da! It's almost like a seam that you would make in sewing. Obviously it is not, but it's close. And you can see down here, we might need to glue it a little bit more. If you wanted to glue along the edge as well, you could for this one. Pulled down quite nicely and quite quickly for that one. All we are going to do is do this again on the other side as well. You should be able to turn them inside out. Now there are 2 ways that you can do the ending to this one. Number 1, you can do it inside out. So you could just go the same way. You could glue it on the other edge and then you can flip it to be inside out. Probably the simplest way, but I'm not going to do it that way, even though you could, or I might. I haven't quite decided yet. But the other way that you can do it is you can just take both sides, kind of face out. You're going to put glue on the edge and then you're just going to put them together. So like that. Just going to bring around the other edge. Working kind of quickly because you know your hot glue cools down fast. Ta-da! And now when we turn this, it's going to be together, and obviously make sure that if you do it that way, make sure you don't accidentally twist anything. So again, completely up to you how you decide to do that one. Both ways should work, because if I turn this, see, flat, could have done it that way. Turn it inside out, like this. And now we have our wraparounds. I'm going to finish gluing this one now together. Just going to bring it together down here. Double check and make sure that the page is intentionally the way that it should be. And if possible, hopefully your setup will be a little bit easier than mine. Let's glue this together. Man, I can't even really see the line right now. Okay, and like that, and press it together. Perfect. So now all 3 of our wraparounds are together and ready to go onto our basket. So I can show you all 3 different kinds because I did sew them together, the other one together off screen. So now we can go ahead and see the finished product on our basket. Alright, so remember, here is our basket that we have, and let's just show you all of these. So here is the wraparound for Luke. And oh yes, that's right, now I remember, our basket was a little bit long. Actually, this will work in our favor, because then if you had a bigger basket, you could change it. And you could pin it in the back. So I want you to kind of see I had an overlap of about half, probably half of a piece of felt. And we knew this going into it. I had just kind of forgotten. So keep that in mind for your felt. Just remember to double check it. But I think, honestly, it looks rather good. Because, yeah, now we can go ahead and we can set it directly how we like it, or we can pin it. That way, if you change baskets for your kids, or if you change the basket that you want the label on in general, you can do it. So there is the felt banner wraparound. I hope you guys like that one. I certainly do. I think it might be one of my favorites. Well, I like all 3. I should just be honest. I like all of them. Now here is the second one. This was our hot glue gun version. Just hot glue. And I'm just going to gently pull it up. Sorry, I kind of hit the camera. I'm going to gently pull it up over that rim. This turned out great as well. Might need a little hot glue on this side at the end of the day, but check it out! You can pull it up a little bit too. Cover that rim a little bit more. And aha! And this one sits directly nicely onto it. Yes! Oh, I love the way that this one turned out. So nice and snug. You don't have to worry about it coming off of the basket. Oh, it looks so good. Now we just have the last one, which is that Sewn. I just kind of want you to see. There's that sew line. Now we can put this one on too. Oh, it came off quite nicely too. That's a good thing as well. Because it was stable while it was on there, but it didn't take a whole lot of work to come off again. Okay, let's do this one. This one, if you remember, was a little bit different. This was meant more kind of for if you did a gardening basket, or maybe if you did an Easter basket for yourself as the parents instead of maybe like the kids. This is more what I was thinking of for that. And it just takes a second. Sorry, I know I'm off camera. Just gotta fix it. There's a little corner on this basket that it does not like. Well, it really doesn't like. Oh. Alright, here you go. You can see there are those flowers. There's the bunny. egg on the side there. Needs to kind of get pulled up a little bit on the side so you can see the carrot, and I can always mess with that a little bit later, but again, nice and snug on there, which, considering it's both a blessing and a curse for me at the moment. Ha! There, now it's perfect. Here is our final project. I hope you guys enjoyed following along on this HTV vinyl project that we made. This fun, cute Easter or outdoorsy wraparound for baskets. Did 3 kinds: our hot glue gun version, our sewn version, and our felt hot glued version. I hope you liked all of them. You'll have to let me know which one you guys decide to try out and do for yourself. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.